The last warning. The emergency siren screamed through the halls of the Galactic Council's main station. Ambassador HFY of the Vrex Empire slammed his four clawed hands on the council table, his red eyes blazing with fury. "This is your final warning," he roared at the trembling council members. "Surrender your colonies now or face complete destruction." The council chamber fell silent, except for the nervous chittering of the insect-like Cree delegates and the low rumbling of worried Torgan representatives. High Chancellor Moradin, leader of the peaceful Althari, stood slowly. Her blue skin had turned pale, and her antennae drooped with defeat. "Ambassador HFY," she said with a shaking voice, "the Galactic Council has kept peace for over 300 years. We cannot simply hand over entire star systems to your empire." HFY laughed, a sound like grinding metal. Behind him, his massive warship captains nodded with cruel smiles. The Vrex Empire had been growing stronger for decades, conquering world after world. Now they wanted the Council's most precious colonies, the garden worlds where billions of peaceful beings lived. "Peace," HFY spat. "Your peace is weakness. Look around you, Chancellor. Half the galaxy already bows to Vrex rule. The other half will follow soon enough." He activated a hologram showing the current galactic map. Red zones marked Vrex territory, spreading like a disease across the stars. The remaining free worlds looked tiny and helpless in comparison. "You have exactly 7 solar cycles to evacuate your colonies," HFY continued. "After that, my fleets will take them by force. Any resistance will be crushed." The Torgan delegate, a massive rock-like being named Crothar, stood up with a sound like grinding stone. "What about the old treaties? The protection pacts? Surely some of the ancient powers will—" "The ancient powers are gone," HFY roared, his scales turning bright red with anger. "The elders vanished into the void centuries ago. The makers retreated to their hidden worlds. And the humans—" He paused, then laughed coldly. "The humans put themselves to sleep like cowards 50 years ago. They're probably dead in their metal coffins by now." At the mention of humans, several council members shifted uncomfortably. The humans had been fierce warriors and brilliant engineers, but they had mysteriously entered something called Cryo sleep 50 years ago. Their last message had been strange. "When the galaxy needs us most, we will wake." "Face reality," HFY said, walking around the table like a predator circling prey. "No one is coming to save you. Your fleets are weak. Your weapons are outdated. Your people have grown soft in peacetime. The age of the Galactic Council is over. The age of the Vrex Empire begins now." He stopped in front of Chancellor Moradin and leaned down, his hot breath making her step back. 7 cycles, Chancellor. Choose wisely. Surrender with dignity, or watch your worlds burn." The Vrex delegation filed out of the chamber, their heavy boots echoing like death drums. When they were gone, the remaining council members sat in stunned silence. "What do we do?" whispered the Cree delegate, her insect wings buzzing with fear. "Our defense fleets can't stop them. The Vrex have 1,000 warships for every one of ours." Chancellor Moradin looked around the table at the frightened faces, representatives from dozens of species, all looking to her for answers she didn't have. The weight of billions of lives pressed down on her shoulders. "We could try to contact the sleeping powers," suggested Crothar. "The elders, the makers, even the humans." "The elders disappeared into deep space 300 years ago," Moradin replied sadly. "The makers sealed themselves away and won't answer our calls. And the humans, nobody even knows where they went to sleep." But deep in her heart, she remembered the human ambassador's last words before their species entered cryo sleep. "We go now to prepare for the galaxy's darkest hour. When evil threatens to consume all free worlds, when hope seems lost, when the innocent cry out for protection, we will return." At the time, it had seemed like meaningless poetry. Now, facing the end of everything they had built, those words felt like a promise. "Send out emergency signals to every corner of the galaxy," Moradin ordered. "Maybe somewhere someone is listening, someone who can help us." As the council members hurried to their ships, none of them noticed the small pulse of energy that traveled through subspace, carrying their desperate message across the stars. And far away, In a hidden part of space, that signal reached a massive structure drifting in the void between galaxies. Inside the structure, thousands of cryo chambers hummed quietly, each one containing a sleeping human. For 50 years they had waited, growing stronger, preparing for this moment. And now, as the desperate plea of the Galactic Council reached their automated systems, something began to change. Deep in the structure's core, a computer started its wake-up sequence. Red warning lights began to flash, and in the largest chamber of all, a pair of human eyes slowly opened for the first time in half a century. The galaxy's darkest hour had arrived. But unknown to the Vrex Empire, their greatest enemies were beginning to wake up. The terror spreads. 3 solar cycles had passed since Zexhi's ultimatum, and the galaxy burned with fear. Across hundreds of worlds, panic had taken hold as the Vrex Empire moved their massive fleets into position. On the peaceful farming world of Nexara Prime, families packed their belongings and fled toward evacuation ships. The Nexarians had never known war. Their worst problem had been crop failures. Now they watched the sky, waiting for death to rain down from the stars. "Mama, where are we going?" asked a young Nexarian child, her purple skin pale with fear. Her mother couldn't answer. Nobody knew where they could go that would be safe from the Vrex. Meanwhile, at the Galactic Council's emergency headquarters, chaos ruled. The main hall buzzed with desperate activity as thousands of refugees streamed in from border worlds. The Vrex hadn't waited for their deadline. They had begun their conquest early. "Report from Sector 7, called out a communications officer. "The Vrex fleet has taken the mineral worlds." "No survivors! Sector 12 is under attack!" shouted another. "The defense platforms are falling." Chancellor Moradine stood in the center of the madness, trying to coordinate the evacuation of entire star systems. Her once beautiful blue skin was now gray with exhaustion, and her antenna trembled with stress. "How many ships do we have left?" she asked Admiral Thex, the Althari fleet commander. 47 warships still operational," he replied grimly. "The Vrex have over 800 in this sector alone." The numbers were impossible. For every council ship, the Vrex had 20. Their weapons were more powerful, their armor thicker, their crews trained for nothing but destruction. "What about the emergency signals?" Moradin asked desperately. "Any response from the sleeping powers?" "Nothing from the Elders or the Makers," the communications chief reported. "But Chancellor, we're detecting some unusual energy readings from the dead zone." The dead zone. That's what they called the empty region of space where the humans had vanished 50 years ago. Long-range sensors showed nothing there but cosmic dust and radiation. "Probably just solar storms," Admiral Thex said dismissively. "The humans are gone, Chancellor. We have to accept that." But before Moradine could respond, the chamber's main screen lit up with an incoming transmission. The image was fuzzy at first, then cleared to show Ambassador Zexhi's scarred face, grinning with cruel satisfaction. "Greetings, Council fools," he said with mock politeness. "I hope you're enjoying your last few cycles of freedom. My fleets have taken 12 star systems ahead of schedule. Your people die like insects," he gestured, and the screen showed horrific images of destroyed cities and burning worlds. The council members gasped in horror. "You see how pointless resistance is?" Zexhi continued. "Your fleets scatter like frightened prey. Your allies abandon you. Your ancient protectors sleep in their graves. You are alone, and you are finished." Chancellor Moradine stepped forward, her voice shaking but determined. "The Galactic Council will never surrender to tyrants like you, Zexhi. As long as one free world remains, free worlds," Zexhi laughed. "Let me show you how many free worlds you have left." The screen changed to show the galactic map. The red zones of Vrex control had spread like poison, covering nearly 3/4 of known space. Only a small cluster of systems around the council headquarters remained independent. 4 cycles, Chancellor," Zexhi said, his eyes glowing with malice. 4 cycles, and then we come for your precious council station. We'll make an example of you that will be remembered for 1,000 years. The transmission ended, leaving the council chamber in stunned silence. 4 cycles, whispered the Kree delegate. "We'll never evacuate everyone in 4 cycles. "The children," sobbed a Torgan representative. "What about all the children?" Moradin felt the weight of despair crushing down on her. Billions of innocent beings were counting on her to save them, and she had no idea how. The Council's greatest warriors were dead or scattered. Their mightiest ships were broken and burning. Their ancient allies were gone. But then something strange happened. Deep in the Council Station's communications center, a signal began to come through. It was faint at first, barely detectable above the background noise of space. But it grew stronger, more focused. "Chancellor," called the communications officer, his voice full of excitement. "I'm getting something from the dead zone. It's some kind of response signal." The chamber fell silent as everyone turned to listen. The signal was unlike anything they had heard before. Not the musical tones of Althari technology, or the clicking patterns of Cree systems, or the deep rumbles of Torgan equipment. It was steady, rhythmic, almost like a heartbeat. And somehow, despite being transmitted across vast distances of empty space, it sounded strong, powerful, alive. "What is it?" Moradin asked, hardly daring to hope. "I don't know," the officer replied, working frantically at his controls. "But whatever it is, it's big, really big, and it's moving toward our position." On the screen, long-range sensors showed a massive object emerging from the dead zone. It was huge, larger than any ship the Council had ever seen. And it wasn't alone. Behind it, dozens of similar objects were appearing, their energy signatures blazing across the cosmic dark. "Unknown vessels," Moradin broadcast into space. "This is Chancellor Moradin of the Galactic Council. Please identify yourselves." The response came immediately, and when it did, hope blazed to life in the hearts of every Council member. The voice was human. Definitely human, but somehow different from the humans they remembered. Stronger, more confident, almost terrifying. "Chancellor Moradin," the voice said, calm and clear. "This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the Human Federation Deep Strike Fleet. We received your distress call. We're coming to help." "Humans," gasped Admiral Thex. "But how? Where have you been?" "We've been preparing," Admiral Chen replied simply. 50 years of preparation. The galaxy needed us to be stronger, so we made ourselves stronger, much stronger. On the sensor display, the approaching human ships continued to grow larger as they came closer. Their design was unlike anything the Council had seen before, sleek and deadly, crackling with unknown energies. "Admiral," Moradin said, her voice trembling with hope. "The Vrex Empire has conquered most of the galaxy. They have thousands of ships, and they're coming for us in 4 cycles. I don't know what you've prepared, but—" "We know about the Vrex," Admiral Chen interrupted, and there was something cold and dangerous in her voice. "We've been watching them, studying them, learning their weaknesses. Chancellor, how many of your people need evacuation?" "Billions," Moradin replied sadly. "But even if we could save them all, we have nowhere to take them." "The Vrex control everything." "No," the human admiral said, and now her voice carried a promise that made even the strongest Council members shiver. "The Vrex control nothing. They just think they do. In 4 cycles, that illusion will be shattered." The human fleet was close enough now to see with optical sensors. The ships were beautiful and terrible, glowing with power that made the Council's most advanced vessels look like toys. "How many ships do you have, Admiral?" asked Admiral Thex. Admiral Chen's reply made the entire chamber gasp. "This is just the first wave," she said calmly. "We're bringing everything we've got. After 50 years of preparation, the human race is ready for war." As the human ships took position around the Council station, their presence seemed to push back the darkness. For the first time in months, the galaxy's free peoples had hope. But in his command ship, Ambassador Zexhai was also watching the long-range sensors. When he saw the human fleet appearing, he laughed with genuine amusement. "So," he hissed, "the sleeping children wake up at last. How touching. I wonder if they know that 50 years of sleep has made them weak, while we have grown stronger." He opened a communication channel to his fleet commanders. "All ships, prepare for battle. It seems we'll get to crush the famous humans after all. This should be entertaining." The stage was set. In 4 cycles, the greatest battle in galactic history would begin. But neither side truly knew what the other had become during their 50 years apart. The humans had not been sleeping. They had been evolving. and the galaxy was about to discover just how dangerous a prepared humanity could be. The Awakening Storm 2 cycles remained before Zexhi's final deadline, and the Vrex Empire was mobilizing the largest war fleet in galactic history. From every corner of their territory, massive battleships converged on the Council sector, their dark hulls bristling with weapons designed to destroy worlds. Aboard the Vrex flagship Death's Edge, Admiral Korthak studied the tactical displays with satisfaction. Over 3,000 warships under his command, plus support vessels, troop transports, and planet-killer weapons. It was enough firepower to sterilize entire solar systems. "Admiral," reported his tactical officer, "the human fleet has grown to 200 ships. Still vastly outnumbered." Korthak's scarred face twisted into a smile. 200 ships against 3,000. The humans always were poor at mathematics. "Have you analyzed their vessel designs?" "Yes, sir. They appear to be heavily modified versions of their old ship classes. But the energy signatures are unusual. Our computers can't identify their weapon systems." 50 years of rust and decay," Korthak said dismissively. "The humans went to sleep in outdated ships. Whatever modifications they've made can't compare to 5 decades of Vrex military advancement." But he was wrong. Terribly, impossibly wrong. Aboard the human flagship Eternal Vigilance, Admiral Sarah Chen stood before a holographic display showing the entire galactic situation. Her appearance had changed during the long cryo sleep. Her body was stronger, her reflexes faster, her mind sharper. The humans had not simply slept, they had evolved. "Admiral," reported her tactical officer, Commander Rodriguez, "all fleets are in position. Deep Strike is ready, Ghost Division has reached their coordinates, and the Omega Fleet—" He paused, checking his instruments. "Omega confirms they're standing by." Chen nodded. Around her, the bridge crew worked with inhuman efficiency. Their movements were too fast, too precise. These were not the humans the galaxy remembered. "Open a channel to Chancellor Moradin," Chen ordered. The connection established instantly. On screen, the Althari leader looked exhausted but hopeful as she coordinated the massive evacuation efforts. "Admiral Chen," Moradin said, "our sensors show the Vrex fleet approaching. Over 3,000 ships. I know you've come to help, but perhaps it would be better to focus on evacuation. Your people shouldn't die for our mistakes." Chen's smile was cold and sharp as a blade. "Chancellor, 50 years ago, the human race made a promise. We said we would return when darkness threatened the galaxy. We don't break our promises." "But the numbers," Chen interrupted, "are only part of war. The Vrex think they know what humans are capable of. They're about to learn they were wrong." She turned to her crew. "All ships begin Phase 1. Time to remind the galaxy why predators fear humanity." At first, nothing seemed to happen. The human fleet remained in defensive positions around the Council station, their ships seeming small and insignificant compared to the massive Vrex armada approaching. But then, the impossible began. On the furthest edge of Vrex territory, automated monitoring stations started going silent. One by one, entire star systems lost contact with the Vrex command structure. It should have taken weeks for any attacking force to cover such distances. The humans were doing it in hours. "Admiral," shouted the communications officer aboard Korthak's flagship, "we're losing contact with our border stations. Something is attacking our supply lines." Korthak frowned. "Impossible. All human ships are accounted for. Our sensors show them clearly. Sir, I'm getting reports of ghost ships. Vessels appearing out of nowhere, striking our installations, then vanishing before we can respond." Before Korthak could reply, another alarm sounded. Then another. Within minutes, his tactical display was blazing with emergency signals from across the Vrex Empire. "What's happening?" he demanded. "Unknown attackers in sectors 7, 12, 18, and 23, his tactical officer reported, panic creeping into his voice. "They're hitting our ammunition depots, fuel stations, communication relays. Sir, they're crippling our entire support network." "Show me these attackers." The main screen flickered to life, showing grainy sensor footage from a Vrex supply depot. Dark shapes moved through space like living shadows, their forms almost invisible against the cosmic background. They struck with surgical precision, destroying exactly what they needed to destroy, then vanished. "What are those things?" whispered a bridge officer. Admiral Chen's voice came through the communication system, cold and confident. "Those are humans, Admiral Korthak. We've been listening to your conversations." "Did you think we would fight you the way you expect?" Korthak snarled. "Impossible. Humans fight with honor, face to face." "The humans you remember did," Chen replied. "But we learned something during our 50 years of preparation. Sometimes to protect the innocent, honor must give way to effectiveness." More reports flooded in. Vrex fleet commanders found their ships losing power as invisible attackers damaged their energy cores. Weapon systems failed as key components were somehow removed without anyone seeing how. Entire squadrons found themselves stranded when their fuel was mysteriously drained. "This is impossible," Korthak roared. "No species has this technology." "We didn't have it 50 years ago," Admiral Chen admitted. "But we've had time to grow, time to change, time to become what the galaxy needed us to be." On the Council station, Chancellor Moradin watched in amazement as the tactical displays showed Vrex forces across the galaxy falling into chaos. Supply lines cut, communications disrupted, entire fleets left floating, helpless in space. "How are they doing this?" she asked Admiral Chen. 50 years ago, we realized that the galaxy would face a great threat, Chen explained. We couldn't stop it by being the same species we were. So we made ourselves into something new, faster, stronger, smarter. We developed technologies that other species can't even imagine. "But your ships," Admiral Thex protested, "there are only 200 of them." Admiral Chen laughed, and the sound sent chills through everyone who heard it. "You can only see 200 of our ships, Admiral. You have no idea how many we actually have." As if to prove her point, space itself seemed to ripple around the Council station. Suddenly, what had appeared to be empty void was filled with human vessels. Hundreds of them, thousands of them, appearing from nowhere as their stealth systems deactivated. The Council members stared in shock. The human fleet was massive, not just in numbers, but in the size of individual ships. Vessels that made the largest Vrex dreadnoughts look like shuttles. "Stealth technology," Admiral Chen explained calmly. "Just one of the things we developed while we slept. We've been watching the Vrex Empire for decades, learning their weaknesses, preparing our response." Aboard Death's Edge, Admiral Korthak's confidence was crumbling. His massive fleet, which had seemed invincible just hours ago, was falling apart. Ships were losing power, weapons were failing, and his communications network was in chaos. "Admiral," his tactical officer reported, "we're getting reports of human ships inside our defensive perimeter. They must have been there for hours, maybe days, waiting for the signal to attack." "Inside our perimeter? How? We don't know, sir. They just appeared." Korthak stared at the tactical display in disbelief. Red enemy markers were showing up everywhere, behind his lines, among his supply ships, even next to his own flagship. The humans hadn't just brought a fleet to fight him. They had surrounded him with an invisible army. "All ships," he ordered desperately, "open fire on the human fleet. Destroy them now!" But when his ships tried to target the humans, they found that their weapon systems had been sabotaged. Power couplings had been severed. Targeting computers had been disabled. Ammunition had been removed. The invisible human saboteurs had been thorough. "This is Admiral Chen to the Vrex fleet," came the calm human voice over all channels. "You are surrounded. Your ships are disabled. Your empire is falling apart. I'm giving you one chance to surrender." "Never!" Korthak screamed. "The Vrex Empire bows to no one." "I was hoping you'd say that," Admiral Chen replied, and there was something terrible in her voice. "All human vessels, you are authorized to use maximum force. Show them what 50 years of evolution has created." What happened next would be remembered as the most one-sided battle in galactic history. The human ships, no longer hiding, opened fire with weapons that defied understanding. Beams of pure energy cut through Vrex armor like paper. Missiles that moved faster than thought struck with the power of dying stars. But most terrifying of all was the realization that the humans were holding back. They could have destroyed the entire Vrex fleet in minutes, but instead they systematically disabled ship after ship, leaving the crews alive but helpless. "Why?" Korthak gasped as his own flagship's engines failed. "Why don't you just kill us?" Admiral Chen's reply was heard by every being in the sector. "Because we're still human, Admiral. We may have become something more than we were, but we haven't forgotten who we are. We protect the innocent, we defend the weak, and we give even our enemies a chance to choose a better path. The battle was over in less than an hour. 3,000 Vrex ships floated helplessly in space, their weapons disabled, their crews unharmed but defeated. The great Vrex warfleet, built to conquer the galaxy, had been reduced to floating metal without a single human casualty. But this was only the beginning. Admiral Chen opened a channel to every world in Vrex space. "People of the galaxy," she broadcast, "the age of Vrex tyranny is over. But we don't come as conquerors. We come as liberators. Any world that wishes freedom need only ask. Any being that seeks protection will have it. The human race has returned, not to rule, but to serve." On worlds across the galaxy, enslaved populations looked up at the stars with hope for the first time in decades. The humans were back. The galaxy's guardians had awakened, and in the council chamber, Chancellor Moradin wept with relief as she realized that the long darkness was finally coming to an end. The price of awakening. In the aftermath of the one-sided battle, the galaxy held its breath. Across thousands of worlds, beings who had lived in fear of the Vrex Empire dared to hope that freedom might be possible. But in the depths of space, other powers were stirring. Ancient forces that had been watching the conflict with growing interest. Admiral Sarah Chen stood in the war room of the Eternal Vigilance, studying reports from across human space. The expression on her face was troubled despite their overwhelming victory. "Admiral," reported Commander Rodriguez, "the Liberation fleets have successfully freed 47 star systems in the last cycle. Vrex resistance has been minimal. Most of their forces surrender as soon as our ships appear." "Good," Chen replied, but her tone was distant. "What about the deeper scans? Any sign of the real threat?" Rodriguez hesitated. "Ma'am, the Vrex Empire was the real threat. We've broken their power completely." Chen turned to face him, and Rodriguez stepped back involuntarily. The Admiral's eyes held a depth of knowledge that was somehow frightening. "Commander, the Vrex were never the real threat. They were just the symptom. Something made them into conquerors. Something pushed them to expand across the galaxy with such aggression." On the main display, a galactic map showed the extent of human operations. Green zones marked liberated systems, blue showed Council territory, and the shrinking red areas represented the last Vrex strongholds. But Chen's attention was focused on the dark regions beyond the galactic rim, empty spaces that their sensors couldn't penetrate. 50 years ago, when we entered Cryo sleep, we detected signs of something moving in the void between galaxies, Chen explained. Something that was influencing events from the shadows, pushing species toward conflict and conquest. Rodriguez frowned. "You think the Vrex were being controlled?" "Not controlled," Chen corrected. "Guided, encouraged. The Vrex have always been aggressive, but their recent expansion was too organized, too systematic. Someone or something wanted the galaxy destabilized." Before Rodriguez could respond, an urgent communication came through from Chancellor Moradin on the Council station. Admiral Chen, the Althari leader's voice carried a note of panic. "We're receiving reports from our deepest space monitoring stations. Something massive is moving in the void beyond the galaxy. Multiple contacts heading our way." Chen's expression hardened. "This is what we've been preparing for. All fleets assume defensive positions. Contact the Omega Division. Tell them it's time." "Admiral," Rodriguez asked quietly, "what is the Omega Division?" For a moment Chen looked tired, older than her years despite her enhanced physiology. "Commander, what we showed the Vrex was just the beginning. The stealth ships, the advanced weapons, the enhanced human capabilities. Those were our basic improvements. Omega Division represents what we really became during our 50 years of sleep." Space around the Council station began to ripple and distort. At first, it looked like sensor glitches, but then massive shapes began to emerge from what had seemed like empty void. These ships were unlike anything seen before, not built so much as grown, their organic curves pulsing with inner light. "My God," whispered Rodriguez. "Those aren't ships. What are they?" "The next step in human evolution," Chen replied grimly. We didn't just improve our technology during Cryo sleep, Commander. We improved ourselves. The Omega Division volunteered for the deepest changes. They're still human, but more than human. On the Council station, beings from across the galaxy stared in wonder and terror at the new arrivals. The Omega ships were beautiful and alien, their surfaces rippling like living skin, their energy signatures unlike anything in known science. Admiral Chen called Chancellor Moradin. "What are those vessels?" "The galaxy's last line of defense," Chen replied. "Chancellor, I need you to evacuate all non-essential personnel from the Council station. What's coming isn't like the Vrex. It won't be satisfied with conquest. It wants complete annihilation." As if summoned by her words, the long-range sensors detected something massive emerging from the galactic void. It wasn't a ship. It was too large, too irregular. It looked more like a small moon, but it pulsed with dark energy that made nearby stars flicker and dim. "Contact from the unknown entity," reported the communications officer. "On screen," Chen ordered. The view screen filled with an image that made several council members cry out in fear. The entity was ancient beyond measure, its form shifting between mechanical and organic, between solid matter and pure energy. When it spoke, its voice carried the weight of eons. "Humans," it said, the word dripping with contempt. "The sleeping children wake at last. We wondered if you would ever emerge from your metal cocoons." "I am Admiral Sarah Chen of the Human Federation," she replied calmly. "Identify yourself and state your intentions." The entity laughed, a sound like dying suns. "We are the Devourers, child. We have consumed 1,000 galaxies, and now we come for yours. Your little war with the Vrex served our purposes perfectly. The galaxy is weakened, divided, ripe for harvesting." Around the mysterious being, more shapes emerged from the void. Dozens of them, each the size of a moon, each radiating power that made the largest human ships seem insignificant. "You used the Vrex," Chen stated, her voice cold with anger. "Of course. They were so eager to conquer, so easy to manipulate. We whispered in their leaders' dreams, showed them visions of galactic domination. They did our work for us, softening your defenses, scattering your fleets on worlds across the galaxy. Populations that had just been freed from Vrex oppression looked up at the sky in terror as the dark entities spread their influence. Plants began to wither, technology failed, and even the bravest beings felt a crushing despair settling over their spirits. You see, the Devourer continued, already our presence weakens your galaxy. Soon, every star will dim, every world will grow cold, every thinking being will surrender their life force to us. It is inevitable. But Admiral Chen smiled, her expression so cold and determined that it made even the ancient Devourer pause. You made one mistake, she said quietly. You assumed that humans would be the same species you remember from 1,000 galaxies ago. You assumed that 50 years of sleep had made us weak. She gestured, and the Omega ships began to change. Their organic surfaces rippled and flowed, revealing weapons and abilities that existed beyond current understanding of physics. We didn't sleep for 50 years, Chen continued, her voice growing stronger. We evolved. We prepared. We became something new, something designed specifically to face threats like you. Impossible, the Devourer snarled. No species can change so drastically in such a short time. Humans can, Chen replied simply. It's what we do best. We adapt, we overcome. We become whatever we need to be to protect the innocent. The lead Omega ship began to glow with an inner fire that made the surrounding space itself seem to bend and twist. Other ships followed suit, their transformed crews no longer entirely human, but still carrying humanity's core purpose, to guard the weak against the darkness. All ships, Admiral Chen broadcast across the human fleet, initiate the Phoenix Protocol. Show these ancient parasites what 50 years of human determination can accomplish. What happened next challenged the understanding of every scientist in the galaxy. The human ships began to merge and separate, their forms flowing like liquid metal as they adapted to combat an enemy beyond physical comprehension. The crews inside had become something more than biological. They were pure will given form. Human consciousness evolved beyond the limitations of flesh. This is impossible. The devourer raged, but now there was fear in its ancient voice. You're just children. We have devoured civilizations older than your species. Maybe, Chen acknowledged, her form now glowing with the same inner light as her ship. But you've never faced humans before, and you've made the mistake that all bullies make. You've threatened our friends. The battle that followed would be remembered not as a conflict between fleets, but as a war between different concepts of existence itself. The devourers brought entropy, despair, and the cold certainty of death. The evolved humans brought hope, determination, and the unshakable belief that life would always find a way to overcome darkness. But even as the cosmic battle raged, Admiral Chen knew this was only the beginning. The devourers had been testing them, probing their defenses. The real fight was yet to come. In the depths of space, more entities stirred. The galaxy's fate hung in the balance, and humanity, transformed but still recognizably human, stood as its last guardians against the hungry dark. The price of victory. The battle between humans and devourers had raged for 6 days, turning the space around the Council Station into a cosmic storm of unimaginable energies. Reality itself seemed to bend and twist as two forms of existence fought for dominance, one seeking to consume all life, the other determined to preserve it at any cost. Admiral Sarah Chen no longer looked entirely human. Her body had become something between flesh and energy, allowing her to interface directly with her evolved ship and crew. Around her, the bridge of the eternal vigilance pulsed with organic machinery that responded to thought rather than touch. "Status report," she commanded, her voice now carrying harmonics that spoke directly to the minds of her crew. "Phoenix Protocol is operating at maximum capacity," reported what had once been Commander Rodriguez. His consciousness now existed partially within the ship's systems, allowing him to process data at inhuman speeds. "We've destroyed 17 devourer entities, but more keep emerging from the void." On the main display, the battle looked like a war between gods. The evolved human ships moved like living creatures, adapting their forms instantly to counter each devourer attack. But the ancient enemies were learning too, their forms becoming more complex as they absorbed energy from destroyed human vessels. "Admiral," Rodriguez's enhanced consciousness warned, "the devourers are adapting faster than expected. They're learning our tactics and evolving countermeasures." Chen nodded grimly. Through her connection to the ship's sensors, she could feel the tide of battle shifting. The devourers were ancient beyond measure. They had consumed entire galaxies and learned from each one. Humanity's advantages were impressive, but they might not be enough. "Open a channel to all human vessels," she ordered. "It's time for the final protocol." Across the fleet, enhanced human commanders received her transmission. They knew what she meant, and many of them hesitated. The final protocol would guarantee victory, but at a price that would change humanity forever. "Admiral," came a voice from Captain Martinez of the Omega ship Transcendence. "Are you certain? Once we activate the Unity Protocol, there's no going back. We'll no longer be individual humans." Chen closed her eyes, feeling the weight of the decision. 50 years ago, when they had entered cryo sleep, the human scientists had discovered something incredible. A way for human consciousness to merge and become something greater than the sum of its parts. They had prepared for this moment, knowing it might be necessary to save the galaxy. "Captain, how many innocent beings are counting on us right now?" she asked. "Billions, Admiral. Trillions across the galaxy." "Then we do what humans have always done," Chen replied firmly. "We sacrifice ourselves to protect others. All ships, prepare for Unity Protocol activation." Meanwhile, on the Council Station, Chancellor Moradin and the remaining galactic leaders watched the cosmic battle with a mixture of awe and terror. The space around them had become a battlefield between forces beyond their comprehension. "Chancellor," reported the Althari sensor officer, "I'm detecting massive energy buildups in the human fleet. Something's happening. Get me Admiral Chen," Moradin ordered. The communication took several seconds to establish. The evolved human technology was becoming so advanced that it was hard for normal systems to interface with it. Chancellor, Chen's voice came through, though it now sounded like many voices speaking in harmony. We're about to activate our final defense. I want you to know, it's been an honor serving alongside the Galactic Council. Admiral, what are you planning? Moradine asked, fear creeping into her voice. We're going to become what the galaxy needs us to be, Chen replied. One last evolution, one final change. The Devourers think they've seen everything the universe can produce, but they've never encountered human determination pushed to its absolute limit. The transmission ended, leaving the council members staring at the view screen in confusion and growing dread. In space, the human fleet began to change in ways that defied description. The ships started moving toward each other, their organic hulls flowing together like drops of water merging. But it wasn't just the ships, the enhanced human crews were merging too, their consciousness joining into something vast and unified. What are they doing? Whispered the Devourer leader, its ancient voice showing uncertainty for the first time. This is impossible. No species would voluntarily surrender their individuality. You don't understand humans, came a new voice. Not Chen's alone, but the combined consciousness of every human in the fleet. Thousands of voices speaking as one, unified in purpose but somehow still retaining their individual humanity. We've always been stronger together than apart. You made us choose between our individuality and the lives of everyone we're sworn to protect. That's not really a choice at all. The merged human fleet had become something unprecedented. A single entity made up of willing participants, each consciousness distinct but connected to the whole. It was neither a hive mind nor individual beings, but something entirely new. We are still human, the unified voice continued. But we are also more. We choose to be more, not for power, not for conquest, but for protection. The Devourer entities launched their most devastating attack yet, pouring dark energy that could unmake matter itself. But the unified human entity absorbed the assault. Its merged consciousness finding ways to convert the destructive force into pure life energy. Impossible! The Devourers raged. We have consumed galaxies. We have ended civilizations that existed before your species was born. Maybe, the humans replied calmly, but those civilizations didn't have what we have. And what is that? Hope. What happened next would be debated by philosophers and scientists for millennia. The unified human consciousness reached out across space not with weapons or force, but with something the Devourers had never encountered before. The absolute certainty that life was worth preserving, that every being mattered, that love was stronger than entropy. The Devourers, beings of pure consumption and despair, found themselves unable to process this concept. Their ancient minds, used to feeding on fear and hopelessness, recoiled from the intense warmth of human compassion, expanded to cosmic proportions. You're offering us redemption? The lead Devourer asked, its voice now small and confused. We're offering you choice, the humans replied. You don't have to be destroyers. You can be builders. You can be protectors. You can choose to create instead of consume. For long moments, the cosmic battle stopped. The Devourers, creatures older than most stars, struggled with a concept they had forgotten eons ago. The possibility of change. Some of them chose differently. 3 of the ancient entities allowed their forms to shift, their dark energy slowly transforming into something that could nurture life instead of ending it. They would spend the next 1,000,000 years learning to create rather than destroy, guided by the patient wisdom of their former enemies. But others could not accept the change. Unable to adapt to a universe where hope was stronger than despair, they faded away into the cosmic dark. Their ancient purpose finally ended. When the battle was over, the unified human consciousness faced its greatest challenge yet, choosing whether to remain merged or return to individuality. We could stay like this, some voices within the whole suggested. United, we're powerful enough to protect the entire galaxy forever. But we'd lose what makes us human, other voices replied. Our diversity, our individual dreams, our personal connections. Admiral Chen's consciousness, still distinct within the whole, made the decision. We became this to save the galaxy, not to rule it. We return to who we were, but we keep the connections. We stay human, but we remember what we can become when we work together. Slowly, carefully, the unified entity began to separate. Ships reformed, individuals returned to their own bodies, but something had changed. Every human now carried a connection to every other human, not controlling, not overwhelming, but present. A network of mutual support that would last forever. When Admiral Chen fully returned to her individual form, she found tears streaming down her face. Around her, the bridge crew of the Eternal Vigilance were similarly affected. They had experienced unity beyond imagination and chosen to remain beautifully, imperfectly human. "Admiral," Rodriguez said softly, "we did it. The galaxy is safe." "For now," Chen replied, but she was smiling. "There will be other threats, other challenges. But we've proven something important today." "What's that?" "That no matter how dark things get, no matter how impossible the odds, there's always hope. There's always a way forward. We just have to be willing to become whatever we need to be to protect the people we love." On the Council station, Chancellor Moradin watched the human fleet return to normal space. Their ships once again recognizable as vessels rather than cosmic entities. When Admiral Chen appeared on the communication screen, she looked entirely human again. Tired, scarred by battle, but undeniably human. "Chancellor," Chen said with a weary smile, "the immediate threat is over. The galaxy is safe. Admiral, what you did out there, what you became, how do we even begin to thank you?" Chen's smile widened. "You don't need to thank us, Chancellor. Protecting the innocent is what humans do. It's who we are. It's who we choose to be, no matter what form we take." In the years that followed, the story of the Battle of Unity would be told across thousands of worlds. The Vrex Empire was dismantled and its former territories given independence. The Council expanded to include new member species, including some of the reformed Devourers who had chosen creation over destruction. And the humans? They returned to their role as guardians, never ruling but always protecting. Some chose to remain in their enhanced forms, becoming explorers of the deepest space. Others returned to simpler lives, content to know that if the galaxy ever needed them again, they could answer the call. The cryo chambers were kept in readiness just in case, but the network of human consciousness meant they would never again sleep alone, never again be isolated from each other. They had learned the galaxy's greatest lesson, that together any challenge could be overcome. In the end, they had terrorized the Council's enemies not through superior weapons or numbers, but through something far more powerful. The absolute refusal to let evil triumph while good beings suffered. They had walked out of their cryo chambers as sleeping soldiers and emerged as awakened guardians, and the galaxy was forever changed for the better. The end. This story demonstrates that true strength comes not from power over others, but from the willingness to sacrifice for others. The humans didn't win through superior technology alone, but through their fundamental choice to remain protectors rather than conquerors, even when given the power to rule the galaxy. Sometimes the greatest victory is choosing to remain who you are at heart, no matter how much you must change to meet the challenges ahead.